He had dismissed every flawless woman who tried to touch his frozen heart, but the sincerity of a soaked, exhausted delivery girl made the Gambino Don feel something he couldn't control. If you're captivated by romances that defy danger and expectation, consider supporting this story with a super thanks. And if you're already rooting for this impossible couple, leave a "love conquers all" in the comments below. The rain that afternoon fell like punishment from the sky. Heavy, loud, merciless. Thunder clung to the edges of Manhattan's buildings, echoing through the narrow streets. No sane person was outside by choice. No one except the desperate, the invisible, and the ones who earned per delivery. Emilia Vargas was not supposed to be anywhere near that mansion. She wasn't even supposed to be in that neighborhood, one of the wealthiest, most impenetrable pockets of New York. But lightning had knocked out half the city's GPS signals, and her cheap battery pack had died miles earlier. She rode her bike through the storm with a single hope: deliver the package, collect the payment, survive another day. She was soaked through to the skin, her ponytail plastered to her neck, her jeans heavy with rainwater. Her fingers ached from the cold as she clutched the cardboard bag against her chest. Every gust of wind felt like a shove. Every puddle was a trap. But needing the $27 promised for this delivery moved her legs like a motor she didn't have. When she turned onto that street, a street of iron gates and marble steps and cars she'd only seen in movies, she knew she had made a mistake. Her bike chain squeaked miserably as she pedaled slower, scanning mailboxes, praying for a familiar name or a business she recognized. Instead, she found a mansion that didn't belong on any map. Ornate wrought iron gates framed a long stone driveway. Two lion statues flanked a set of marble steps. The front doors were taller than any she had ever seen. This was not the kind of place that ordered salad bowls or protein smoothies. Her phone buzzed one last time before dying completely. The screen showed a single line of text from the app. Order 19863. Leave at door. Do not request signature. She swallowed hard. Hope flickered. Maybe it was for here. Maybe wealthy people ordered normal food too. She approached the gate, hesitating. Rain dripped into her eyes. She wiped it away with the back of her hand, the cardboard bag clutched tightly in her other. The gate buzzed open before she could touch it. Her stomach dropped. She didn't ring a bell. She didn't press anything. They had been watching her. Emilia forced her trembling legs forward, her shoes squeaking embarrassingly against the polished stone. She reached the top step, breath ragged, heart pounding, when the front doors opened with a deep, slow creak, and she saw him. Salvatore Sal Moretti stood at the top of the stairs, backlit by warm interior lighting that made his silhouette look carved from shadow and authority. His hand rested loosely on the edge of the door, his posture unhurried, confident, predatory in the way only men of absolute power ever were. He wore a black Italian suit that molded perfectly to his broad shoulders. His dark hair was slicked back, revealing sharp cheekbones and a jawline dusted with faint stubble. Everything about him, his stance, his stillness, his gaze, told her she had stepped into the wrong world. Emilia's breath stuttered. I have a delivery," she managed, her voice cracking from cold and fear. He didn't answer at first. He simply looked at her, a soaked, shivering delivery girl, with rain dripping from her lashes and shoes falling apart. A woman completely unedited, completely unfiltered, completely real. It was the first time in years Sal had seen Sincerity unmasked. He stepped forward slowly and his voice wrapped around her like velvet dipped in ice. "Who sent you to my door?" I don't know, sir. The app, my phone died. I just followed the map until," she swallowed, "until here." His eyes narrowed slightly, not suspicious, calculating, as if she were a puzzle someone slid unexpectedly into his day. "Give it to me," he said. His tone carried no threat, but her fingers trembled anyway as she extended the cardboard bag. Rainwater dripped from the edges. Her knuckles were white from gripping it so hard. Just as she handed it to him, thunder cracked violently overhead. Emilia flinched hard, and her foot slipped on the slick marble. She gasped as her body pitched backward. Two things happened in less than a heartbeat. Her bike clattered down the stairs, and Sal moved fast, faster than she thought a man in a tailored suit could move. His hand caught her waist, strong and steady, pulling her forward before she hit the ground. She collided with his chest, breath knocked out of her lungs. He held her upright, one hand gripping her waist, the other bracing her elbow. For a second, a brief, dizzying second, she was pressed against him, her cheek near his heartbeat, her breath mingling with the warmth radiating from his body. She froze. So did he. Thunder rolled again, distant this time. Emilia slowly lifted her head, her eyes wide, her lips parted in shock. Sal stared at her as if he didn't understand what his own body had done. He didn't save people. He didn't catch strangers. He didn't allow involuntary instincts. But something about her fragility, her stubbornness, her sincerity, even in fear, had reached a place in him he thought had gone cold long ago. He cleared his throat softly, releasing her waist, but not stepping back. "You're freezing," he said. I'm fine," she whispered, even as her entire body shivered violently. "You're not fine." That single sentence was the warmest thing she had heard in months. Lightning lit up the sky again, reflecting in the polished floors behind him. Sal glanced at her soaked clothes, her shaking hands, her pale knuckles gripping the now empty delivery bag. "Come inside," he said. She blinked, hard. "I can't. I'm dripping everywhere. I'll ruin your floor. I just need to. I'll go. I'll get out of your way." He stepped closer, the shadow of a frown darkening his features. I said, "Come inside." "But you're shivering in a storm," he said quietly, "and I do not leave people in storms." She swallowed, her throat tight. "I don't understand. You don't know me." His eyes softened in a way she didn't expect. "No," he said, "but I know sincerity when I see it." She didn't know why that made tears sting her eyes, but it did. Tentatively, cautiously, she stepped inside. Warmth enveloped her immediately, heat rising from the marble floors. The mansion smelled faintly of cedar, expensive leather, and something darker she couldn't name. Sal closed the door behind her, shutting the storm out. She hugged her arms around herself, trying not to drip on anything. Her teeth chattered uncontrollably now that she was no longer fighting the wind. He noticed. Without speaking, he slid off his jacket, the impossibly soft, tailored black suit jacket, and draped it over her shoulders. She stiffened, stunned. "I can't wear this," she whispered. "It's too expensive." "It's just fabric," he said. "You, on the other hand, are cold." Her heart slammed against her ribs. His kindness was unexpected, not warm or gentle exactly, more like a command wrapped in care, but sincerity pulsed beneath it, real and raw. She looked up at him. He was watching her closely, not with desire, not with threat, but with curiosity, deep, unguarded curiosity. He didn't know anything about her, and yet something about her shook him. "Come with me," he said. "I'll get you a towel." She hesitated. "Why are you doing this?" He paused at the foot of the stairs. Rain dripped softly from her hair, landing on his gleaming floor. "Because," he said slowly, "I don't care for masks, pretenders, people who rehearse their smiles." She blinked. "I'm none of those." "I know." Her breath trembled. He held her gaze. "Women have tried to impress me for years," he said quietly. "You're the first one who simply arrived." Her lips parted. His voice dropped lower. "And you're the first one I couldn't ignore." Her pulse leapt. He turned toward the stairs. "Follow me, Emilia." She froze. "How did you—" He glanced back over his shoulder, eyes dark with something unreadable. "You told the gate." Her breath caught. She hadn't realized she'd said her name when she approached. She hadn't realized he had heard it. She hadn't realized how intimately he listened. She swallowed, tightening his jacket around her trembling body. And she followed him deeper into the mansion, not because she trusted him, not because she wanted to get warm, but because something about him felt like a danger she was finally strong enough to face. Emilia followed Sal up the wide marble staircase, every step echoing softly under her soaked shoes. His jacket hung heavily around her shoulders, the fabric warming slowly from her own trembling body heat. She tried to hold it closed with her hands, but the sleeves were so long they nearly swallowed her fingers. Thunder rumbled outside, muffled by the thick walls. Warm light spilled from sconces along the hallway, giving the mansion an opulent glow that made Emilia feel even more out of place. She kept glancing at the floor, careful not to drip too much on surfaces she couldn't afford to look at, let alone ruin. He walked ahead of her with long, unhurried strides, as if he had all the time in the world, or as if nothing outside of this moment mattered enough to rush. His presence filled the hallway. Power radiated off him, muted but unmistakable. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. His silence was its own language. deep, steady, unreadable. Emilia felt her heart hammer painfully. She had delivered to penthouses, restaurants, offices, even a courthouse once. But nothing, not even the sleekest skyscraper, compared to walking behind him through his home, wearing his jacket. She wasn't sure she should be here. She wasn't sure she should follow him. But something inside her, something small, soft and exhausted, wanted to trust the warmth he offered, even if her mind screamed caution. When he finally stopped, it was in front of a tall door made of dark wood with intricate carvings. Emilia hesitated behind him. He reached for the handle, then paused and turned slightly toward her. "You're shaking," he said quietly. I'm just cold," she murmured. His eyes traveled down to her dripping clothes, her wet hair, her arms wrapped tightly around herself. For a second, for the briefest flicker, his expression softened. He opened the door. The room beyond was a luxurious guest bathroom, all in warm stone and soft gold accents. Towels hung in neat stacks. A large mirror reflected back the warm, honey-colored light. Sal turned to her. "Sit," he said. She blinked. "Sir, I can just dry myself quickly and go. I've already taken too much of your time." "You haven't taken anything," he said. She swallowed hard. "I really should leave." He stepped closer, close enough that she felt his warmth. "Look at you," he murmured. "You can barely stand. You need warmth and food, and I'll be fine." She whispered. "No." His voice softened. "You won't." Her breath trembled. He didn't touch her, but his presence alone was grounding, steadying. No one had spoken to her with this kind of concern in years, maybe ever. "Please," she whispered. "I don't want to burden you." He held her gaze, and something inside him shifted. The steel in his tone melted into something warmer, something more human. "You're not a burden, Emilia." Her heart squeezed painfully. "How do you know my name?" she whispered. He studied her for a moment. "Because I listen when people speak, not just when it suits me." She lowered her eyes. He moved to the linen closet, pulled out a thick towel, and handed it to her. "Dry off. You'll feel better." She accepted it with trembling fingers. He walked toward the door. "I'll bring something warm to drink." "Wait," she said quickly, panic rising. "Sir, you don't have to." He paused in the doorway. "I never do anything I don't choose to," he said quietly. "Dry off. I won't be long." Then he left, closing the door with gentle finality. Emilia let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. She stared at the towel in her hands as if it was something too precious to touch. She dried her face, her arms, her neck, her hair as best as she could. Then she looked in the mirror. Her reflection startled her. Wet hair clung to her face. Her cheeks were flushed from cold and embarrassment. Her lips trembled slightly. But what struck her most was the jacket, Sal's jacket. She lifted the collar closer to her face. It smelled faintly of cedar and something warm and masculine, something she couldn't name but felt deep in her chest. She shouldn't be wearing this. She shouldn't be here at all. She placed a trembling hand over her heart. "What are you doing, Emilia?" she whispered. She wasn't afraid of him. Strangely, impossibly, she was afraid of what her own heart was doing. Sal descended the stairs with a tension in his shoulders he hadn't felt in years. He walked through his dining room, ignoring the curious look from his consigliere, Dante, who stood near the fireplace. "Don?" Dante asked carefully. Sal didn't answer. Dante stepped into his path. "Is everything all right? The alarm went off earlier, and now you look—" "I said I'm fine," Sal muttered, brushing past him. He wasn't fine. He didn't know what he was. He made his way into the kitchen. A staff member froze when she saw him enter, nearly dropping a tray. "Sir, what can I—" "Tea," he said. "Hot." The woman blinked. "Tea. Yes, now." He didn't wait for her response. He stood by the counter, staring at the marble surface as if it held the answers to questions he refused to ask himself. Why had he reacted like that when she slipped? Why did catching her feel instinctive? Why did he feel heat in his chest when he saw her standing in his doorway, soaked and trembling and untrained in deception? Why did her sincerity, her simplicity, hit him harder than any betrayal, any deal, any death? He closed his eyes. He hated artificial women, the ones who clung to him for his power, the ones who performed femininity like theater, the ones whose smiles were rehearsed and whose words were lies. He had grown cold to them, impenetrable. And then a delivery girl, someone real, someone with tired eyes and rain-soaked jeans, walked into his world without asking permission, and he couldn't ignore her. He couldn't force himself to. The tea finished, he grabbed the porcelain cup himself, ignoring the staff's wide eyes, and headed back up the stairs. When he returned to the guest bathroom door, he paused. He could hear her breathing. He could feel her presence from the other side of the door, soft, warm, trembling. He knocked softly. Emilia. She opened the door carefully. Her hair was still damp, but she looked warmer, though her eyes still carried a vulnerability that wrapped painfully around his ribs. He held out the cup. "Drink," he said simply. She accepted it with both hands. The warmth made her exhale softly, an intimate, innocent sound that tightened something deep in his chest. "Thank you," she whispered. Her sincerity was disarming, completely disarming. He cleared his throat. "There's a fire in the study. Sit by it while your clothes dry." "I can't." "You can, but it's late. And my bike, my shift. Someone might be waiting for the order." "The bag is delivered," he said. "Your shift is done." She blinked. "But I need the money." He stared at her, something darkening in his expression. "How much do you earn per delivery?" She looked away. "It depends." How much?" he repeated. She hesitated, then whispered, $27. He exhaled through his nose, a cold, silent fury settling beneath his skin. "Sit by the fire," he said. "I'll take care of the rest." She shook her head. "No, you don't understand. Emilia." Her name in his voice made her fall silent instantly. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You walked through a storm to bring something to my door. You fell, you're cold, you're exhausted, and you've had no one to care whether you survive the night." Her lips parted, breath trembling. "I won't send you back out there," he said gently. "Not until you're safe." Safe. The word made her heart ache. No one had ever used it for her. No one had ever tried to give it to her. She swallowed. "Why are you being kind to me?" He considered her question. He didn't want to answer it, but she deserved honesty more than any woman he'd ever met. "Because you're real," he whispered, "and I haven't felt real in a long time." Her eyes widened, softening with shock and something dangerously close to understanding. He stepped back, giving her space. "Come," he said, "before you freeze again." She followed him out of the bathroom, not because she trusted him completely, but because, for the first time in years, she wanted to believe someone. And Sal, dangerous, cold, impenetrable Sal, was the first man who made her feel seen without performing a thing. Emilia followed Sal through the dim corridor, the Rottweiler still dripping faintly from the rain as he padded along behind them. Her wet shoes squeaked softly against the polished floors, an embarrassing reminder of how out of place she was here. She clutched the warm teacup with both hands, letting the heat seep painfully into her stiff fingers. Sal's jacket hung from her shoulders, far too large, far too heavy, but impossibly comforting. Every inhale brought a faint trace of his scent. Cedar, smoke, quiet spice, a scent that tangled inside her chest and tightened something she didn't want to name. He wasn't speaking. He didn't need to. His silence was full, thick, attentive, coiled with something that felt far too intimate for a man she'd known less than an hour. She avoided looking at him directly. Every time she did, her heartbeat jumped in a way she couldn't control. But she stole glances anyway, at the broad line of his shoulders, the sharp cut of his jaw, the tension in his throat when he swallowed. He walked with the quiet authority of someone used to commanding rooms with nothing but posture. And she was a woman who made $6.50 per delivery. Her throat tightened with humiliation. When they reached the study door, Sal opened it and stepped aside, not with the exaggerated flourish of a man showing off, but with the old-world courtesy of someone whose bones had been raised with rules older than the country. "After you," he murmured. His voice sounded different in the warm, enclosed space, lower, rougher, as if the walls swallowed and softened it. Emilia stepped inside. The study wasn't enormous, but it had weight. A fire crackled in the stone hearth, shadows dancing along bookshelves filled with leather-bound volumes. A thick Persian rug spread across the floor, and the scent of burning wood mixed with the faint echo of Sal's cologne. She felt her breath catch. It was the warmest room she had entered in years. Sal walked past her, his footsteps soft but certain, and motioned toward an armchair positioned beside the fire. "Sit," he said gently. She hesitated. "I'm still wet. I'll ruin." Emilia. Her name again. It made something inside her flutter and collapse at the same time. "Sit," he said. She obeyed. The fire warmed her immediately, heat blooming across her cold skin. She held the teacup closer, letting steam brush her chin. It was the first time she had stopped moving all day. Sal watched her for a moment, too long, too closely, and she felt her cheeks heat even before the fire touched them. He moved to the fireplace, adjusting one of the logs with a brass poker, and flames flared brighter, sending a burst of warmth through the room. Finally, he sat down across from her in a leather chair, elbows resting on his knees, hands clasped loosely, but he wasn't relaxed. His eyes were locked on her, sharp, intense, searching. He didn't look like a man assessing a stranger. He looked like a man trying to understand why something had just shaken him to his core. "You're quieter now," he said after a moment. "I'm just warming up," she said softly. "That's not what I meant." She swallowed. I don't know what to say to you." A faint curve touched his lips. Not a smile, not exactly, but something dangerously close. "You don't need to perform for me," he said. "Most people do." She blinked. "Perform?" "Yes." His gaze deepened. "Pretend. Posture. Be who they think I want them to be." She looked down at her cup. "I don't know how to do that." "I know," he murmured. "That's why you're still here." Her chest tightened. "You don't even know me." He didn't blink. "I know what I see." "What do you see?" she whispered. Before she could stop herself, something flickered in his eyes. Heat, curiosity, something darker. "A woman with sincerity in her eyes," he said quietly. "A woman who's been tired for a very long time. A woman who doesn't expect kindness and doesn't know how to accept it when it comes." Emilia's breath broke. Her fingers tightened around the cup to keep from trembling. He didn't say it with pity. He said it with recognition, and that was worse. She forced her gaze away, staring into the fire. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "I don't know why you're being so kind to me." He leaned forward slightly. "Because you're honest," he said, "and I don't meet many people who are." She blinked hard. "Honest? I lied about being fine. I lied to get through most days." He shook his head. "Those aren't lies. Those are survival." She looked down at her shoes, ashamed of the mud and rainwater dripping onto his beautiful rug. He followed her gaze, and then, without warning, he stood. She startled, instinctively pulling her feet closer as if preparing to be scolded. Sal walked toward her slowly, unhurried, but with a purpose that made her pulse pound in her throat. He stopped in front of her and crouched down, bringing himself level with her chair. Her eyes widened. He was suddenly so close. Close enough to feel the heat from his chest, close enough to see a faint scar on his cheekbone, one she hadn't noticed before, close enough to smell the warmth of his skin beneath the cedar. He reached for her shoes. "What are you?" He slipped them off gently, placing them aside. "You'll make yourself sick if you keep wearing those," he murmured. Her breath faltered. You didn't have to do that." He looked up at her, his eyes dark and steady. "Yes," he said softly, "I did." Her heart stuttered. He rose slowly, reaching for a folded blanket draped over the back of the sofa. He placed it over her legs with a care so deliberate it shattered something inside her. "Warm up," he said. "You're shaking." She wasn't sure if she was shaking from the cold anymore. He sat again, but now the air felt different, charged, heavy, tender, in a way she had no defenses against. "Emilia," he said after a long silence. She looked up, wide-eyed, vulnerable. His voice dropped lower, the timbre sliding into her like warm honey. "What happened to you?" Her stomach clenched. Nothing," she whispered. He tilted his head slowly, studying her. "Don't lie." Tears pricked at the corners of her eyes. "Emilia," he said gently, "I'm not asking to judge you. I'm asking because you flinch at kindness like it's going to hit you." She closed her eyes, choking on air. He continued, voice softer, "And because when I caught you earlier, you looked like no one had ever caught you before." The first tear slipped down her cheek. She wiped it quickly, embarrassed. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "For crying?" he asked quietly. "Don't apologize for what makes you human." She shook her head. No one talks to me like this. Not even people you trust," he asked. "I don't really have people," she admitted. Sal's expression changed. darkened, not with anger at her, but with anger for her. "Then you do now," he said simply. Her breath caught. "What does that mean?" "It means you're not alone in this house," he said. "Not anymore." A warm tear rolled down her cheek. This time he reached forward and caught it with his thumb. Her skin burned at the touch. She froze. He froze. The fire cracked softly behind them. He didn't pull away. "Emilia," he said, voice barely a whisper, "you're safe here." She shook her head. "You don't know anything about me." "I know enough," he said. "What if I'm not someone worth helping?" His voice deepened, rough and unfiltered. "Then I'll decide that for myself." Her lips parted, her breath trembling. She couldn't look away from him. She didn't want to. He stood suddenly, not abruptly, not harshly, but with a sudden certainty. "Come," he said. "You need dry clothes." She blinked. I didn't bring anything like that." His eyes softened. "I'll find something." Her heart jumped. "I shouldn't take anything from you." "You're not," he said. "I'm giving it." He walked toward a side door. Before stepping through, he paused and turned back to her. His voice was low, warm, and dangerous in a way that didn't frighten her, but awakened her. "Emilia," he murmured, "I don't know why you came to my door tonight, but you'll never walk away from it cold again." She swallowed hard, clutching the blanket closer. Her heart whispered what her mind refused to admit. She didn't want to walk away from him at all. Sal closed the side door behind him, leaving Emilia wrapped in a blanket beside the fire, the tea warming her hands, and the weight of his jacket heavy on her shoulders. She felt swallowed by the room, by its warmth, its silence, its luxury, and most of all by the intensity he'd left in the air. Everything about this place felt like it belonged to another world, one where danger dressed itself in elegance and silence held more secrets than she could begin to imagine. Her breath trembled as she stared at the flames. No one had ever taken care of her like this. Not this gently, not this attentively, not this personally. Her throat tightened. She didn't know what he would return with. She didn't know what she would say when he walked back through that door. And she certainly didn't know what to do with the feeling of safety that was creeping slowly, dangerously, beneath her guard. The door finally opened. Emilia lifted her head. Sal walked in holding folded clothes, simple, soft, neatly chosen. Not lavish gowns or things that would embarrass her, just comfortable black sweatpants and a dark grey long-sleeved shirt that looked like it belonged to him. Her breath hitched when she recognized the faint scent of cedar rising from the fabric. He walked toward her with that same quiet authority, measured, strong, controlled, and placed the clothes gently on the armchair beside her. "These should fit," he said. "Not perfectly, but well enough." "Are these yours?" she asked softly. "Yes." Her cheeks warmed. "I can't wear something." "You can," he interrupted, "and you will. Your clothes are soaked. These are dry, warm, and clean." Her fingers curled nervously around the blanket. "You don't understand. I don't want to take advantage of your kindness." His expression changed, not anger, but something deeper. He crouched in front of her again, just as he had when he removed her shoes, but this time he kept his hands resting lightly on his knees, giving her space. "You are not taking advantage of anything," he said quietly. "I don't offer kindness easily. If I offer it to you, it is because I choose to." His sincerity hit her like a blow. She swallowed hard. "I'm just not used to people choosing me for anything." His voice lowered. "Then get used to it." She shook her head. "Sal, you don't know me. You don't know what I've been through." He leaned in slightly, eyes locked on hers. "Then tell me." Her breath trembled. I can't. "Not yet." His gaze softened, and he nodded once. "Then I'll wait, as long as it takes." Her chest tightened painfully. There it was again, patience. A patience she didn't deserve. A patience she had never been shown by anyone. He stood slowly. "You can change in the bathroom. I'll wait here." She hesitated. "Are you sure?" He held her gaze. "Emilia, you're safe in this room." The words wrapped around her like a warm coat. She nodded, gathered the clothes, and slipped into the bathroom. Inside, she locked the door and pressed her back to it, exhaling shakily. Her heart raced so fast she worried he might hear it through the walls. She removed the wet clothes, wringing them out into the sink, and dressed in Sal's shirt and sweatpants. The shirt was far too big, soft, warm, and it felt like she was wearing the echo of his embrace. She looked up at her reflection in the mirror. Her hair hung in damp waves around her face. Her cheeks were flushed from the fire, and Sal's grey shirt, his scent, his heat, clung to her shoulders like a secret she wasn't ready to admit. She touched the fabric lightly. "What are you doing?" she whispered to herself. But she already knew she was falling into a world she didn't belong to, into a man who didn't make sense, into a feeling she couldn't name. She took a steady breath, opened the door, and stepped back into the study. And Sal, he didn't breathe for a second. He stood by the fire, hands in his pockets, posture relaxed but eyes fierce. The moment he saw her wearing his clothes, something in him shifted, visibly, unmistakably. His gaze moved slowly from her damp hair to her flushed cheeks, to the shirt hanging off her frame, to the soft fabric pooling at her ankles. His jaw tightened just slightly. "You look warmer," he said, voice low. "I am," she whispered. His eyes met hers again, dark, intense, a little softer than before. "Good." He motioned toward the armchair. "Sit." She obeyed. He took the seat across from her again, but this time he didn't lean forward. He leaned back, as if he needed distance or restraint. A long silence filled the room, thick and electrifying. Finally, Amelia broke it. "I'm not used to this," she said softly. "Used to what? Someone caring, even just a little." His gaze darkened. "People should have cared." She swallowed hard. "They didn't." He nodded slowly, as if piecing her together with every word. Then, softly, "Tell me what you need right now." Her breath caught. "I don't know." "Think." She looked at him, really looked at him, at his steady posture, his controlled breathing, the faint scar near his temple, the exhaustion hidden beneath his strength, the sincerity in his eyes she would not have expected from a man like him. She whispered, "I need someone to not walk away." He inhaled sharply. He stood, not fast, not abruptly, but with purpose, and walked toward her. She stiffened, but he didn't touch her. He didn't reach for her. He simply knelt in front of her chair again, his hands bracing the armrests lightly, his face only inches from hers. His voice was low, warm, steady. "I'm not walking away." Her breath trembled. "Why?" He held her gaze, not like a man playing with a fragile woman, not like a man seducing someone vulnerable, not like a man claiming territory. He looked at her like a man who found something he didn't know he needed. His voice was a quiet confession. "Because when you looked at me tonight," he murmured, "I felt something real for the first time in years." Her heart pounded. "Sal, I've been surrounded by perfect, polished women who only want what I can give them," he continued. "Power, status, money, fear." He shook his head slightly. "But you came to my door soaked, cold, exhausted." He exhaled. "And honest." Her breath hitched. He lifted a hand slowly, slow enough for her to pull back if she needed to, and brushed a damp strand of hair from her cheek. She didn't pull away. "Emilia," he whispered, his fingers lingering near her jaw. "I'm cold with the world because I've had to be." She swallowed. "And with women." His eyes softened. "With women who aren't real." Something inside her cracked. "And me?" she whispered, barely audible. He lowered his hand, his palm resting gently against her cheek. "You are the most real thing I've seen in a decade." A soft, involuntary tear escaped her eye. He caught it with his thumb. "Stop doing that," she whispered unsteadily. "Doing what?" "Looking at me like..." Her voice broke. "Like I matter." "You do." Her pulse stuttered. He leaned closer, not enough to frighten her, but enough for his breath to warm her lips. "Emilia," he murmured, "I won't pretend I don't want to know you. I won't pretend I don't feel something I shouldn't." She inhaled shakily. "But I also won't take what you're not ready to give." Her eyes widened. He pulled back slightly, letting her breathe. "You control the pace," he said. She blinked rapidly. "What if I don't know what pace is safe?" she whispered. He smiled softly, a real smile, small but devastating. "Then I'll follow your lead." Thunder rumbled outside again, softer now, as if fading with her fear. She held his gaze for a long, trembling moment and whispered, "Don't leave." His chest rose sharply. "I'm right here." She nodded, eyes wet, voice breaking. "I'm not ready for anything, but I don't want to be alone tonight." He exhaled slowly, deeply. "I'll stay as long as you need." And he did not move away, not an inch, because the truth settled between them like heat from the fire. She was the first woman he didn't have to pretend with, and he was the first man she didn't fear. Two broken worlds, two lonely lives, and one moment that changed everything. Emilia didn't know how long she sat there in Sal's oversized clothes, wrapped in the blanket, staring into the flames, while Sal remained kneeling in front of her. The fire cracked softly, warming her skin, but it was his presence, solid, steady, quietly burning, that kept her from spiraling into the familiar emptiness she carried like a shadow. He didn't move, he didn't push, he didn't fill the silence. He simply stayed, and it was the staying that terrified her most. She lifted her gaze slowly, her heartbeat stumbling when she found his eyes already fixed on her. There was no dominance in the way he looked at her this time, no intimidation, no power play, just a sincerity that cut through the hardness of his features like light through storm clouds. He broke the silence first, his voice low and careful. "Emilia, talk to me." Her throat tightened. "About what?" "Anything." He tilted his head slightly. "Whatever you want to say, whatever you need to say." Her breath trembled. I'm not used to anyone wanting to hear me." "I do." She swallowed hard. "Why?" "Because your voice doesn't lie." The room stilled. She stared at him, stunned by the simplicity of his answer. Everyone else in her life had treated her words like background noise, something to tolerate or talk over. But Sal, he listened like words mattered, like hers mattered. Emilia shifted slightly, clutching the blanket closer. "I don't know where to start." He stood slowly, rising with the controlled grace of a man who knew exactly how to move, and took the seat across from her again. "Start with today," he said. "Why were you out in that storm?" Her face reddened. "I needed the money." "How badly?" She hesitated. "Badly enough to risk getting sick." His jaw flexed. "No one should have put you in that position." She gave a soft, humorless laugh. "No one puts me anywhere. Life just happens." Sal leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "And you just survive it." She blinked hard. Tears pricked the corners of her eyes again. "I'm not trying to survive," she whispered. "I'm just trying to keep going." "And you've been doing it alone," he said quietly. She nodded. "You shouldn't have to." She looked away, heart pounding painfully. She didn't know how to handle this, how to accept kindness from someone so powerful, so controlled, so terrifyingly capable of changing her life simply by choosing to. "I don't understand why you care," she whispered. "Neither do I," he admitted. "But I do." She let out a shaky breath. "I don't know how to trust that." "You don't have to," he said gently. "Not tonight. Not ever, if you choose." His sincerity struck her deeper than any gesture. "I just don't want to be a problem for you." His voice dropped into something deep and dangerous. "You're not a problem, Emilia. You don't even know what comes with me," she said. "My past, my situation." Then let me find out," he said. Her breath stuttered. She shook her head. "It's ugly. Ugly things don't scare me." "I'm not talking about crime," she whispered. "I'm talking about me." A flicker, soft but unmistakable, passed through his expression. "Emilia, you have no idea how valuable sincerity is to a man like me." She felt something inside her shift, like a door creaking open inside her ribcage. He sat back again, studying her quietly. "Tell me what you need tonight," he said. "Tell me what will make you feel safe." She shook her head. "Nothing makes me feel safe." His voice softened. "Then let me try." Another tear fell. She wiped it with the blanket. "Can I ask something?" she whispered. "Anything. Why are you being like this with me? You barely know me, but you talk to me like you've been waiting for me." He inhaled slowly, staring into the fire for a moment, as if weighing a truth he didn't normally share. Then he said it. "Because you're real, Emilia. And I am starving for something real." Her chest felt like it might collapse around her heart. He continued, his words slow, deliberate. "Women come to me polished, perfect, manufactured, fake." He paused. "I've built walls around myself because of them, because I got tired of masks." He looked her dead in the eyes. "You walked in my door with no mask, no act, no performance, just truth." Her breath hitched. "And that disarmed me more than anything else has in years," he finished quietly. If the devotion rising in Sal's voice moves your heart as deeply as Emilia's, a super thanks is the most direct way to help keep stories this intense and emotional alive. Emilia pressed a hand over her mouth as another tear threatened. She didn't want to fall apart in front of him, not when he was being so sincere, so steady. But his words cracked something open inside her, something she hadn't touched touched since the world first taught her to shrink. She whispered, "I'm afraid." His expression softened instantly. "Of me?" "No," she said, "of myself." He frowned lightly. "Explain." "I don't know how to let someone in without losing everything," she admitted. "When people get close, they use it against me." His jaw clenched. "They won't. Not here. You can't promise that." "Yes," he said, leaning forward, voice low and unshakable. "I can." She felt the power in those words, not arrogance, not bravado, but certainty, real certainty. A silence hung between them, heavy and alive. Finally, she whispered, "Can I tell you something? Something I've never said out loud." He nodded once. "Tell me." "When you caught me on the stairs earlier, when I slipped," she swallowed. "I've never had anyone catch me before. I didn't know how to react." His breath caught in his chest. Something warm flickered across his face, something pained and protective. "You look terrified," he murmured. "I was terrified of needing that, of needing someone." He stared at her, hard. "Emilia," he said, voice low and rough, "I need you to understand something." She held her breath. "I'm not here to take from you, not your trust, not your body, not your fear. I'm here because something about you," he exhaled, "makes me want to be a man you can look in the eyes without flinching." Her heart nearly stopped. And then he said the thing that stole the air from her lungs completely. "I don't want anything from you except honesty. Your pace, your truth, whatever you're ready to give." Her whole body trembled. "No one's ever said that to me," she whispered. "I'm not most men." She lifted her eyes to his. "I know." Another long silence followed, full of heat, sincerity, and something beginning to bloom between them. Sal stood slowly. He extended a hand toward her, not demanding, not claiming, simply offering. "Come," he said softly. "You need rest." She hesitated. He waited. Finally, she placed her hand in his. The warmth of his palm spread through her like sunlight breaking through the cold. He pulled her gently to her feet. She swayed. He steadied her instantly, a hand finding the small of her back. "Easy," he murmured. His voice was a caress. She didn't step away. Instead, she stood there in front of him, chest rising and falling, eyes locked on his, breath shallow, heart pounding. "Sal," she whispered. "Yes." What happens now?" His fingers brushed her shoulder. Barely a touch, but enough to make her inhale sharply. "Now," he said softly, "I protect you from everything that's ever hurt you." Her fingers curled in the fabric of his shirt. "And after that?" she whispered. He stepped closer, slowly, giving her every chance to pull away. She didn't. His breath brushed her lips. He didn't kiss her. He didn't cross that line. Instead, he whispered, "After that, we see what you're brave enough to want." Her knees nearly buckled. The fire cracked behind them. He released her slowly, letting her breathe again, letting her step back into her own body. "We'll take it slow," he said. "Your pace, always." She exhaled shakily. "Okay," she whispered, but her body already knew the truth. She wasn't afraid of him. She was afraid of how safe he felt and how dangerous safety could be. Sal guided her back toward the armchair by the fire, his hand lingering lightly along her back. Not possessive, not forceful, but steady in a way that made Emilia's breath tremble. His palm felt warm through the fabric of his own shirt she wore, a weight that grounded her more than she wanted to admit. He waited until she sat again, then lowered himself slowly into the chair across from her. His movements were deliberate, almost ritualistic, like he was trying not to frighten her. Or maybe he was trying not to reveal how much she unsettled him. The storm outside began to quiet, but the air between them only grew more electric. "Are you hungry?" he asked. She blinked. No. I don't know." He tilted his head slightly, studying her. "When was the last time you ate?" She looked down. "This morning." His jaw tightened. "It's almost midnight." "Oh." She tucked a strand of damp hair behind her ear. "Well, I don't eat much when I work late." "You need strength," he said quietly, "especially in bad weather." She shrugged. "Strength doesn't come from food. It comes from having no choice." "Emilia," he murmured, "that is not strength. That is survival." She swallowed hard. He stood unexpectedly, and she startled. He paused. "I'm going to the kitchen," he said, voice gentle. "Not far. Will you stay here?" She nodded, hugging the blanket closer around herself. His eyes softened. "Good." He left the study, his footsteps fading down the hallway. For the first time since she arrived, Emilia was alone in the room, alone with her thoughts, alone with the warmth of the fire. alone with the echo of what Sal had said. After that, we see what you're brave enough to want. She pressed a hand to her chest. It wasn't fair, how easily he reached places inside her she had kept locked for years. It wasn't fair that a man like him, a man who could command armies with a look, moved around her with such restraint, such patience, such devastating sincerity. She didn't know how to breathe around it, how to accept it, how to not want more of it. The door opened softly. She looked up, expecting him to walk in carrying something simple like a sandwich or a mug of soup. But instead, he stepped inside, carrying an entire wooden tray laden with warm dishes, a bowl of creamy vegetable soup, sliced bread brushed with olive oil, roasted potatoes with herbs, and a steaming cup of chamomile tea. Her eyes widened. "I didn't know what you'd like," he said, "so I brought choices." Choices. She wasn't used to choices. He set the tray on the low table between them, then pulled his chair closer, not too close, but enough that she felt surrounded by his warmth again. "Eat," he said softly. She hesitated, staring at him. "I don't want to eat in front of you," she whispered. "Why not?" "Because it makes me feel," she swallowed, "like I'm being watched." "You are," he said quietly, "but not in the way you fear." Her cheeks warmed. He nodded toward the soup. "Try it." She picked up the bowl with trembling hands, dipped the spoon, and took a cautious sip. The warmth slid down her throat and her eyes fluttered shut. She didn't realize how hungry she was until she tasted it. She didn't realize how lonely she'd been until she felt someone watching over her, not with judgment, but with concern. Sal's voice rumbled softly across the space. "Better," she nodded. "Yes, thank you." He relaxed slightly in his chair. "You said earlier that people take advantage when they get close," he murmured. "Tell me something." She looked up slowly. "What? Did someone take advantage of you?" Her breath froze. Her hands shook. He didn't push. He didn't lean closer. He simply waited, with patience that felt like an open door instead of a demand. She placed the spoon down. Her voice came out barely audible. "Yes." His jaw flexed, but he didn't interrupt. "I trusted someone once," she whispered. "Someone I thought was good. Someone who said all the right things." Sal's hands curled slightly around the armrests. "And?" he asked softly. "He wasn't who he said he was." Her throat tightened. "He wanted control, money, my loyalty, my obedience." Sal's breath stilled. "He made me feel weak," she continued, "like I owed him everything, like I was nothing without him." A muscle jumped in Sal's jaw, and when I tried to leave, she whispered, voice cracking, "he made sure I knew what it cost to walk away." Images she tried so hard to bury flickered behind her eyelids. Shouts, slamming doors, shaking walls, empty threats that had turned real. She pressed her hand to her chest, steadying herself. Sal spoke after a long moment, his voice low with something dark and restrained. "Did he hurt you?" Her eyes filled. "Yes." Sal stood abruptly, not with violence, not with fury, with restraint so tight it looked painful. He turned away from her, one hand braced against the mantel, shoulders rigid, breath slow and deliberately controlled. She watched him, confused at first, until she understood. He wasn't angry at her. He was angry for her. She whispered, "Sal." He didn't turn around at first. When he did, his expression stole her breath. Dark, focused, deadly in a way that had nothing to do with threats and everything to do with protection. "No one," he said slowly, "should touch you with anything less than care." Her throat ached. "It's over. He's gone. No," Sal interrupted softly but sharply. "It's not over. Not if you fear him." She swallowed. "I don't fear him. I fear myself around him. How small I became. How easy it was to lose myself." Sal took a step toward her, then another, until he stood just in front of her, close enough for his presence to wrap around her like heat from the fire. "Look at me," he said. She did. "You are not small," he murmured. A tear slid down her cheek. "You are not weak," he whispered. Another tear escaped. "And you don't owe him anything." The tears came faster now, hot, silent, overwhelming. He reached out, slow and deliberate, and brushed his thumb across her cheek. "Emilia," he said, voice deep and steady, "if he ever comes near you again, he will not leave the encounter." Her breath caught. "Sal, you can't." Yes, he said, I can. A tremor ran through her chest. For a heartbeat, they simply stared at each other, the fire cracking behind them, the room holding its breath. Then Emilia whispered, "Why do you care so much? I'm no one to you." His voice lowered to a bare whisper. "You're not no one. Not anymore." She inhaled sharply. His hand slid from her cheek to her jaw, his touch warm and gentle. "You want to know why I care?" he asked. She nodded, barely able to breathe. "Because the moment you walked into my house," he murmured, "I felt something wake up in me, something I didn't think I still had." Her pulse pounded. "What?" she whispered. He leaned closer, not touching her lips, not claiming her, just letting their breaths mingle. "Instinct," he whispered. "Protection, and something else I'm not ready to name." Her breath shook. "You disarm me, Emilia." She closed her eyes. He continued, voice deep and raw, "And nothing in my world ever disarms me." Her heart felt like it might burst. She whispered, "I'm afraid to want anything from you." "I know," he said softly. "That's why I'm patient." She opened her eyes. "But understand this," he murmured. "If you ever choose to trust me, I'll give you the world." Her breath left her. "And I'll burn anyone who tries to take it from you." His hand fell to her shoulder, steady and warm. She leaned just slightly into his touch. Not a step, not a surrender, just a beginning. And that was enough to change both of them. The fire dimmed to a soft orange glow, flickering gently against the stone hearth. Emilia sat curled under the blanket, still wearing Sal's clothes, still trying to steady her breath after her confession. The room felt warmer, safer than any place she'd been in years, but that safety frightened her as much as it soothed her. Sal didn't move for a long time after touching her cheek. He stood near the fireplace, hand braced against the mantel, staring into the flames, as if they held every answer he'd avoided for decades. The muscles along his forearms tightened and relaxed in slow, controlled waves, and his jaw worked once, as if he were fighting something inside himself. Finally, he turned. His eyes found hers instantly, pulling her into a kind of gravity she didn't understand. "Come here," he said softly. Not a command this time, not even a request. It was an invitation. Her breath trembled. She hesitated. He saw it. And instead of growing impatient, instead of closing the space, instead of reaching for her like many men in her past would have, he stepped back, giving her space, giving her air, giving her control. Her heart twisted painfully. She stood, blanket wrapped around her shoulders, and walked toward him slowly, barely breathing, terrified she might change her mind if she thought too hard. The carpet muffled her footsteps. Her pulse echoed louder than the storm outside. When she reached him, he didn't touch her. He simply waited. She looked up at him, the firelight casting shadows across his face, softening the sharp edges and revealing something raw beneath the surface, something almost vulnerable. "What now?" she asked. He studied her for a long moment. "What do you want?" he countered gently. Her lips parted. It was the question no one had asked her in years. Not her boss, not her ex, not her family members who drifted away, not even herself. And hearing it out loud nearly broke her. "I don't know," she whispered, blinking fast as her eyes burned. "I'm not used to wanting things." He nodded once, slowly, as if he understood exactly what she meant. "You will learn again," he said. She shook her head. "I don't know how." "I'll help you," he murmured, "if you let me." She closed her eyes and took a trembling breath. "You scare me," she whispered. His throat bobbed. "I know, but not the way you think." His brow lowered, searching her expression. "Tell me, you scare me because—" Her voice cracked. "Because I feel safe with you, and that's something I've never known what to do with." He froze, absolutely froze. Something deep inside him cracked open. She saw it happen. His shoulders dropped by a fraction. His eyes softened in a way that should have been impossible for a man like him. Then he stepped closer, slow enough that she could sense every inch of the distance closing, slow enough for her to pull back if she wanted. She didn't. He raised a hand, hesitant, careful, and brushed a loose strand of hair from her face. His fingers grazed her cheek. She inhaled sharply. "Emilia," he whispered, "I'm not going to take anything from you. Not your time. Not your trust. Not your body. Not your choices." A tear slipped down her cheek. He caught it with his thumb. "I want the opposite," he said. "I want to give you something." She swallowed hard. "What?" "My protection." Her heart pounded. "My respect." Another tear. "And," his voice lowered to a velvet warmth that wrapped around her like a promise, "a place where you don't have to run anymore." Her throat tightened. What if I don't know how to stop running? He leaned down slightly, close enough for their breaths to mingle, close enough for her to feel the heat of his chest. Then I'll stand still, he whispered, until you learn. She shook her head frantically. You shouldn't do this. You shouldn't get close to someone like me. His brows knit. Someone like you? I'm not polished, she said. I'm not sophisticated. I don't know how to flirt or navigate men like you. I don't know how to be impressive. His eyes darkened, slowly, deeply. Emilia, he murmured, you are the first impressive woman to walk into my life in years. She swallowed hard. You think being bombarded with perfect women makes a man appreciate them, he continued. It doesn't. It makes him numb. She exhaled shakily. Sincerity, he said, is more powerful than beauty. She stared at him, emotions pressing too tightly against her ribcage. He moved his hand from her cheek to her jaw, tracing the delicate line with his thumb. Look at me, he said. She did. Everything about you, your honesty, your exhaustion, your stubbornness, your fear, your strength, everything is real. His voice dropped, rough around the edges. And I am starving for real. She trembled. You don't have to trust me yet, he murmured, but don't push me away because you think you're not enough. Her lips parted. I'm not. He stepped closer, just enough that her breath caught, but still didn't touch her beyond the gentle hold on her jaw. You are more than enough, he whispered. One tear escaped. She inhaled sharply, stepping back instinctively, not in rejection, but because the intensity of his sincerity felt like too much to stand under. He let her go, let her breathe, let her recover her footing. When she opened her eyes again, he was watching her with a mix of restraint and longing that twisted something inside her. Why are you doing this? She whispered. Why me? His answer came without hesitation. Because when I looked at you tonight, he said quietly, I saw someone who wasn't trying to impress me. He stepped closer. Someone who didn't want anything from me. Another step. Someone who trembled and still stood. A third step. They were inches apart now. And I realized, he whispered, that I haven't felt alive around anyone in a very long time. Her breath shook violently. His hand, still cupping her jaw, slid down to rest lightly on her shoulder. His thumb brushed the fabric of his own shirt she was wearing. That shirt looks better on you than it ever did on me, he murmured. Her cheeks warmed. Stop. I'm only telling you the truth. You're going to confuse me, she whispered. I'm confusing myself, he admitted. She blinked in surprise. He took a slow, heavy breath. I'm fighting every instinct I have right now. Her voice was barely audible. Why? Because I want to touch you, he said softly. But I won't, unless you tell me you want that too. Her knees weakened. She pressed a hand to his chest instinctively, steadying herself and him. Sal inhaled sharply at the contact. Her palm felt small against the broad expanse of his chest. Heat radiated through the shirt, through her skin, spreading into her arm like an ache. She swallowed. I don't know what I can handle. I don't know what's safe. He nodded slowly. Then this is all we do tonight. He placed his hand lightly over hers. Warmth enveloped her. That's all, he whispered, her eyes filled with tears she hadn't expected. Why does that feel like so much? She whispered. Because no one has ever given you the chance to set the pace, he said. She choked on a breath. Emilia, he murmured, brushing a thumb along the edge of her hand. I mean it when I say I'm following you. She trembled. Then stay. He inhaled sharply. Not in your bed, she clarified quickly. I'm not ready for anything like that. He nodded once, relief passing through his shoulders like warm current. Then how do you want me to stay? He asked softly. She looked down at their hands, his large protective hand covering her small trembling one. Just nearby, she whispered, where I can feel you're not gone. His breath stilled. Then, as you wish, he said. He released her gently and walked to the large sofa, taking a seat where she could see him, where he could see her. Not too close, not too far, just enough for presence, just enough for safety. She curled back up in the armchair, blanket drawn up to her chin. He rested his arm along the back of the sofa, his body angled toward her, eyes half-lidded, but watching her with a softness she had never seen on any man, let alone one feared by the whole city. Emilia, he said quietly. Yes, sleep, he murmured. I'll be here when you wake. Her throat tightened. She tried to stay awake. She tried to keep her eyes open, but exhaustion won the moment warmth and safety wrapped around her. For the first time in years, she felt her body soften, unguarded, resting, trusting. Before sleep took her fully, she heard Sal's voice, faint, deep, almost reverent. "You don't belong to the world that hurt you," he whispered to the dark. "You belong somewhere safe." The fire crackled softly. "And God help me, maybe you belong with me." She heard those words as she drifted into sleep, and she let them settle deep inside her. Dangerous, healing, impossible. Emilia didn't remember falling asleep. One moment she was watching the fire blur softly in front of her, and the next she was waking up to a deep, steady quiet, one so different from the frantic, unsafe silences she'd known most of her life. Her cheek was pressed against the blanket. Her breath was warm against the fabric. For a moment she didn't know where she was. Then she felt it, a presence, a warmth near her, not touching, not imposing, just there. She blinked slowly. Sal sat on the sofa where she'd last seen him, in the exact position he had promised he'd remain in, one arm resting along the backrest, the other draped loosely over his lap. His eyes were half closed, head tilted slightly forward. He wasn't asleep, but he was resting, watching her. Her breath caught. He'd stayed, really stayed, for hours. A flicker of something fragile and warm blossomed in her chest. She shifted slightly. The blanket rustled. Sal's eyes opened instantly, sharp and alert, though his expression softened the moment he registered her movement. "Morning," he murmured. Her cheeks warmed at the sound of his voice, low and rough with sleep deprivation. "What time is it?" she whispered. "Just after dawn." She sat up groggily, rubbing her eyes. Did you sleep at all?" He shook his head faintly. "I rested." She frowned. "That's not sleeping." "It was enough," he said. "For you," she replied softly. "Not for anyone else." A small shadow of a smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "Are you worrying about me?" She blinked. "Maybe." His smile deepened slightly, subtle, surprised, genuine. "I'm not used to that," he said quietly. "I'm not used to someone caring whether I sleep either." Their eyes held for several long, warm seconds. Something in the air shifted, quiet, delicate and dangerous in a way that didn't frighten her anymore. Sal cleared his throat lightly and stood. "Are you hungry?" She hesitated, then nodded. His posture straightened. "I'll have breakfast brought here." She blinked. "No, I can go to the kitchen. I don't want you doing everything for me." His expression softened. "You think I'm doing something burdensome, aren't you?" "No," he said firmly. "You've been carrying everything alone. Let me carry something for you." Her chest tightened painfully. "That's not how my life works," she whispered. "People don't just help." He approached her slowly, giving her time to step back, not that she wanted to. He lowered himself to one knee beside the armchair. Her breath stilled. "Emilia," he said, voice low and sincere, "let me be the exception." The room felt too warm, too small, too intimate. She looked down at her hands, twisting the blanket between her fingers. "I don't know how. You don't have to know," he murmured. "Just let me try." She met his eyes, dark, warm, promising, and her chest gave an aching twist. "Okay," she whispered. His breath left him in a slow, controlled sigh. "Good." He stood and went to call for breakfast. She watched him from the armchair, watched the way he moved, the way he commanded the room with nothing but presence. He looked untouchable, powerful, and yet last night he'd sat awake just to make sure she slept safely. When he returned, he stood by the fire again, gaze resting on her. "You slept deeply," he said. "I haven't in a long time." "Good." His voice lowered. "You should sleep like that every night." Her lips parted slightly. "With you watching me?" His eyes flickered at the implication. "No," he said after a heartbeat. "With you feeling safe enough that you don't need someone to watch over you." That answer wrapped itself around her heart with a gentleness she never expected from a man like him. "Sal," she whispered. His gaze softened. "Emilia." Before she could say more, a knock sounded at the study door. Sal tensed instantly, shoulders shifting into protective alertness. He went to the door, opened it slightly, muttered a few low words, then returned with a covered silver tray. He placed it on the table between them, removed the lid, and revealed a breakfast that made Emilia's breath catch. Scrambled eggs with herbs, warm croissants, fresh fruit, small pastries still dusted with sugar. "Sal," she breathed, "this is too much." "It's food," he said simply. "Eat." He placed a plate in front of her with an ease that was both elegant and intimate. She took a bite of a croissant, and her knees nearly weakened. Incredible, she murmured. His eyes warmed. Good. He didn't eat immediately. Instead, he watched her with a soft intensity that made her blush. Are you not eating? She asked. I will, he said. I like seeing you eat first. Her cheeks flushed. Don't stare. Why? He asked, amusement low in his voice. You look better in my clothes than I ever did. She covered her face in embarrassment. Stop saying things like that. Why? He said again. They're true. Her laugh came out shaky. Her chest felt warm. Too warm. They continued eating quietly, comfortably. It felt surreal, domestic almost, as if this were normal, as if she belonged in his world, as if he belonged in hers. But reality never stayed gentle for long. A sudden buzz from Sal's phone shattered the fragile peace. He glanced at the screen. His expression changed. Cold, sharp, lethal. Amelia froze. What is it? He didn't look at her immediately. He stood slowly, slipping the device back into his pocket. Sal? She pressed, heart pounding. His jaw tightened. Nothing you need to worry about. That was the wrong answer. Emilia stood, blanket falling to the chair. Someone messaged you, she said, and it changed your entire face. Please don't tell me it's nothing. He exhaled slowly, as if weighing how much to reveal. Finally, one of my men traced someone asking questions about you. Her blood ran cold. No, she whispered. No, it can't be. It's not him, Sal said quickly, stepping closer. I would know. I would find him. Her breath shook violently. But it's someone connected or someone hired. She began to tremble, not from fear of the man chasing her, but from the fear of dragging Sal into it. You can't do this, she whispered. You can't get involved in my problems. I already am, he said. She shook her head. You shouldn't be. Emilia, he reached for her gently. She pulled back. Please, she whispered, tears rising. You don't know what he's capable of. His voice dropped into something deep and lethal, and he doesn't know what I'm capable of. Her breath broke. This isn't your fight. It is now. She pressed a trembling hand to her forehead. Sal, if something happens to you because of me, he cupped her jaw gently, forcing her to look at him. If something happens to me, he murmured, it will not be because of you. It will be because I chose to protect someone who needed it. Tears filled her eyes. I don't know how to let you do that. Then learn, he whispered. The warmth of his thumb brushed away a tear. She trembled. He stepped closer, lowering his voice until it wrapped around her like shelter. Listen to me. Whatever man hurt you, whoever made you feel small, he doesn't get to touch your life anymore. She shook her head weakly. You don't understand. He doesn't stop, not until he destroys every part of... I'll stop him, Sal said. Her breath froze. He leaned closer, forehead almost touching hers, but not quite. Emilia, look at me. She did. You're not alone anymore. Her chest tightened painfully. Why? Why do you care this much? His voice softened dangerously. Because when you walked into my home, everything cold in me warmed. Her lips parted, and everything lonely in me woke up. She swallowed, breath trembling. Sal, you made me feel something real, he whispered, and I will protect that. Her knees weakened. He caught her elbow gently, just enough to steady her. You're safe here, he murmured. Safer than you've ever been, and I won't let anyone take that from you. Not even myself, she whispered. He exhaled softly. Especially not yourself. Her eyes burned. He brushed his thumb along her jaw, slow, reverent. Tonight, he whispered, I'll have my men double the security. Her breath caught. Because of me, yes. And you're not angry? He shook his head slowly. I'm not angry at you. Then at who? She whispered. He lowered his lips near her ear, close enough to make her breath stop. At the world that hurt you. Her heart broke open. The fire crackled. Outside, the storm finally stopped. But inside, something dangerous and beautiful began. He stepped back slowly, giving her room. I won't let anything happen to you, he said. She nodded because she believed him, deeply, blindly, against every instinct she'd learned to survive with. And that scared her, because believing him felt like falling. Emilia didn't know how long she stood there staring at Sal after he whispered those words. Because when you walked into my home, everything cold in me warmed. Time didn't move in the study. The world outside his mansion seemed suspended in a silent, fragile balance. Even the fire quieted, its flames softening as if listening. She should have stepped away. She should have closed herself off. She should have told him all the reasons why getting close to a man like him was dangerous, reckless, impossible. She didn't, because for the first time in years, the danger didn't scare her. The safety did. Sal watched her carefully, the way a man watches a wild creature ready to protect shrieked, ready to back away, ready to let her choose. "Sit with me," he murmured. Her throat tightened, but she nodded. He guided her to the sofa, slowly, gently, as if every movement could startle her. She sat on one end, he sat on the other, leaving space between them. But the space felt charged, electric, alive. She drew the blanket tighter around her. Her fingers trembled slightly. He noticed. "Are you cold?" he asked. "No," she said softly, "just overwhelmed." He nodded, leaning back against the sofa, watching the fire. "Tell me what overwhelms you." "You," she breathed. His eyes shifted to her instantly, dark, focused, dangerously soft. "Because I care," he asked. "Because I don't know what to do with someone caring," she whispered. He inhaled slowly. "You don't have to do anything. But I feel," she shook her head, searching for words. "I feel things I shouldn't feel. Things I haven't felt in a long time." He leaned forward slightly. "Like what?" She swallowed. "Like I'm safe, like I'm wanted, like I can breathe." He closed his eyes for a moment, as if her words struck somewhere deep. "You are safe," he said softly. "You are wanted, and you deserve to breathe." Her breath caught. He opened his eyes again, slow and deliberate. "I didn't expect you," he murmured. "I didn't expect anything to shake me anymore. But you," his jaw flexed, his voice turning low and rough, "you make me feel alive in a way that nothing else in this world has for a long time." She stared at him, stunned by the honesty. "Sal," she whispered. He held up a hand, not to silence her, but to give her space to absorb the truth. "I'm not asking for anything from you," he said. "Not a commitment, not a promise, not your past. All I want is honesty." Her chest ached. "I don't know how to be honest about my feelings." "Then let me go first." She blinked. He leaned forward, elbows resting on his knees, his expression stripped of every mask. "I am falling for you, Emilia." The world tilted. Her breath stuttered. Her fingers tightened on the blanket. She tried to speak, but no sound came out. She pressed her hand to her mouth, overwhelmed by emotion. "I know you're not ready," he continued softly. "I know you need time. I know your past taught you to run, to hide, to shrink. I know you've been alone for too long." She closed her eyes, a tear slipping down her cheek. "But hear me now," he whispered. "You will not be alone again, not unless you choose it." She looked at him, vision blurred by tears. His eyes shone with sincerity, and something that terrified her with its depth. "You caught me," she whispered. His brow furrowed. "Caught you?" "Earlier," she said, "when I slipped on the stairs." His expression softened. "Yes. No one's ever caught me before, Sal. Not physically, not emotionally." Her breath trembled. "And now, I don't know how to fall without breaking." His voice dropped to a reverent whisper. "Emilia, if you fall, I'll be there before you hit the ground." Her lips parted. "And if you choose to fall with me," he added, "I will make sure you never break again." She sobbed, covering her face. He moved to her then, slowly, carefully, and sat beside her, leaving enough space so she didn't feel cornered, but close enough that she could feel the warmth of him. "Can I touch you?" he asked softly. She nodded, trembling. He lifted a hand and brushed a tear from her cheek, then gently guided her head to his shoulder. She folded into him without thought, as if her body had been waiting for this moment, without knowing it. He wrapped an arm around her, lightly at first, then stronger when he felt her melt against him. "I've got you," he whispered. "I've got you." She sobbed quietly into his shirt. "Let it out," he murmured. "You're safe." They stayed like that for a long time, her breathing gradually evening out, his fingers tracing slow circles on her arm. Finally she whispered, "I'm scared of him finding me." Sal's body went still. "He won't," he said. "How can you be sure?" "Because I'm going to end it." She pulled back slightly. "Sal," he shook his head. "No arguments, no fear. You deserve peace, Emilia. You deserve a life where you are not hunted. But violence is my burden," he said, "not yours." Her heart squeezed painfully. "I don't want you hurt because of me." He cupped her jaw gently. "If there is pain to be dealt with, let it be dealt with by someone who knows how." Her eyes welled with fresh tears. He pulled her into him again, his cheek resting against her hair. "You don't carry this anymore," he whispered. She closed her eyes. "Okay," she breathed. He tightened his hold, not constricting, not demanding, but grounding. "Emilia," he murmured, "when I say I'm here, I mean it. I know, she whispered. And when I say I care, she lifted her head slightly. His eyes burned into hers. I mean that too. She swallowed hard. I don't know if I can give you anything back yet. He smiled softly, sadly, beautifully. You already have. What? He lifted her hand, placed it against his chest. Do you feel that? He whispered. The strong, steady thud of his heartbeat pulsed beneath her palm, warm, alive, devoted. You brought this back, he said. That's not nothing. Her breath broke. And whether you give me anything else or not, I'm not going anywhere. He lowered his forehead to hers, breathing her in. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. Emilia closed her eyes, and for the first time in years, she believed a man's promise. Sal, she whispered, I think I'm starting to feel something. His breath stilled. You don't have to name it, he said. Not now. She opened her eyes. But let me name mine, he whispered. Her lips parted. You are the first woman I've cared for in a lifetime. Her pulse thudded. And I will protect you, he murmured. For the rest of mine. She trembled. Sal, he pulled back just enough to see her eyes, his thumb brushing her cheek again, a gesture that had become far too familiar, far too necessary. You don't have to love me yet, he whispered, but let me love you. Her breath caught. And when you're ready, he added, I'll be here. He wrapped both arms around her then, pulling her into his chest with all the tenderness he possessed, which was a kind of ferocity all its own. She rested her head against him. She didn't run. She didn't hide. She didn't doubt. For once, she simply let herself exist in someone's arms, someone who would burn the world down before letting harm touch her again. The fire crackled. The storm outside finally faded into silence. Emilia whispered, thank you. Sal exhaled slowly, holding her tighter. Your generous support through the super thanks helps keep stories of passion and redemption alive. Thank you. And the two of them sat there, a woman learning to trust again, and a man discovering what it meant to feel, wrapped in warmth neither had expected but both desperately needed.